Welcome, collectors, to another For Collectors live stream. I am John, the 3D 80s kid, your host tonight, and I have assembled a group of YouTubers here, some of them new to the live streams, and we are going to be talking about the steroid era. We're talking about how we should regard the folks that we know took it, and then also, talking a little bit about the players whose legacies got kind of screwed by those guys that were dirty. You know, the clean players, the guys who are relatively forgotten because their stats just don't compare to those bloated statistics of the guys roiding up. So, uh, everybody, stick around and enjoy the show.
Welcome to For Collectors.
All right. So first to introduce on the screen, he actually debuted on screen on the For Collectors channel in the very first episode of Theo's Card Room Tour series. That would be none other than Warren D in CLE. Welcome back to the channel, Warren.
Oh, thanks, John. Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Great that Theo getting you on that card room tour was the little kickstart to actually starting your own channel afterwards. So great
Sure
to have
was.
you in the community.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Love being it. Love it, man. Love it.
All right. Up next, we have an experienced person here in the live streams. We've got none other than Darren with Return to Collecting. Welcome back, Darren.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, good, Darren. Good to see you, bud.
Good.
Good to see you guys
Great
too.
to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Last but not least, we have got another new person to our live streams on For Collectors. It is Sammy over at SFI Sports Card. Gave me an excuse to wear the shirt for his channel here. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks for the free marketing on the shirt there.
No worries.
How are you doing, Sammy?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you guys tonight?
Good.
Real good.
All right, and let's do a little quick hello to the chat. We got Rick saying he's first. We got Brian. Welcome. Well, Darren speaking in the chat. Jason. Hey, Jason. Rob, I believe, the baseball time traveler. Peter B. Welcome. And Greg over that little channel, Midlife Sports Cards. Darren's best friend now.
There we go.
And we've also got Carlos EST. Good evening to you, sir. We got Godlike Collectibles. Mookie Chilson, our favorite snarky commenter.
Good old Mookie.
Oh, we got Dom over at Staven Sports Cards doing a big SFI introduction there. Excited to have
Nice.
you here.
I like
Chris from Missouri. Hey there.
Hey, Chris.
Sexton's Kentucky Cardboard. We got Hawaii Double D Vintage. Also from Missouri area there, Billy Ballgame. Up from the Pacific Northwest, Eddie. Peacemaker, welcome. Vintage Baseball Cards Hobby. Hey there. All right, I think I got everybody who has at least chimed in the chat. So everybody, with this whole conversation, I'm going to be trying my best to keep up with the chat at the same time as the conversation. And I welcome your comments on anything we're talking about. Because, you know, this is a bit of a divisive topic maybe here a little bit as far as people's takes with, you know, what to do with the roiders. So just the softball to kick things off to everybody, just as an overall concept, if someone is a known roider, should they ever be in the Hall of Fame? What do you think, Warren?
My opinion is yes. It's part of that era of baseball, and it tells the story of baseball. And we could all sit here and talk numbers all we want, but the numbers don't lie. And we can get into all the semantics, but we have a short amount of time, and it can take a long time to do that. But my first overall opinion, just on the players I see, is absolutely those guys belong there.
Okay. And Greg chimed in with what's a known Reuter. I would say when your hat size triples, that's probably a good indicator.
That's fair.
That's fair.
You suddenly are in a steep career decline as a power pitcher, and then all of a sudden you're a power pitcher again. That's probably a good sign. Yeah. So yeah, we have got the comment there. Jason Clemens tripped over a bat and fell on the needle. So then we've got yes, there are Reuters in already. So what's your take, Darren? I saw you shaking your head here.
Yeah, so I disagree with Warren respectfully. So my thought is this. I agree that these guys from that era needs to be representation of what was going on in the sport in the Hall of Fame. So having displays in the museum about, Bonds and, everybody, Clemens, everybody else, right? These guys that, especially guys that I think had Hall of Fame careers before they started taking steroids. I think that they should have, they should be displayed in the museum, etc. But I don't think that they deserve a plaque in the Hall of Fame. I feel like what they did and the contributions, if that's the right word, that they made, I think that people need to know about that. It needs to go down in the history of baseball. It needs to be in the museum. But I think that, and it's not like people give the example of, they took drugs back in the 60s and this. Yeah, that's great. It like made them, more awake. That's great. Like these guys took stuff that literally made guys that were already past their peak hit 300 more home runs, like in their late 30s, early 40s. Like it's not a good comparison. And my biggest issue with it is you have players that were consistent for 20, 25 seasons, achieved great things. And then you got these guys where they had good careers, they peaked out, they started dropping off, and then passed all these records, when they should have been past their prime. So to me, it's not fair. And it's also, I think from like, we talk about expanding the hobby, right? And baseball in general, I think, expanding baseball in general, right? Younger generations, it's not the best, I don't know. It's not the best example for kids, I think. Right. And this is kind of, makes me feel like an old person when I say stuff like this, but it's not a good example for kids to say, look, when you feel like you just can't go any further, cheat. I don't know. That's just me. Sammy, what do you think?
Well, I've gone back and forth on this subject for so long. And I still will continue to do that going forward, but I believe that they should be in because most of them were on the Hall of Fame track to begin with. And I don't condone, obviously, doing steroids, but I believe when you're going to be in the Hall of Fame, people walking by those plaques already know what they've already done as far as trying to bolster their numbers. So I think when you have your plaque in the Hall of Fame, it's already known that you're a steroid user anyway. So, but I do believe some of these players, Roger Clemens, one of the best pitchers that I've ever watched, Barry Bonds, I think they should be in the Hall of Fame. That's just my opinion. Some of these players, they're some of the greatest players I've ever seen play. So I don't think we should be leaving them out of the Hall. When there's probably already people in the Hall of Fame on steroids anyway. So I just think we should let them in at this point.
I think, and for me, it's tough, right? Because I think there's a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame that absolutely don't deserve to be there, regardless of whether or not they cheated. They just weren't good enough baseball players to get in, and then they're in. So I think it's over the last 15 years, I think it's tougher to make the argument of just because you cheated. You know, my argument basically, I think it's a tougher argument to make because of the fact that there's a lot of guys in there that don't deserve to be there regardless. But we talk about these guys, and I agree. There are definitely some that, you know, Clemens, Bonds, absolutely. But there's other ones like, you know, to me, it's kind of funny. This card, the reason I love this card is just because it kind of, it's just so ironic. One of the most powerful steroid, you know, home run hitters, you know, of all time. Dude crushed it. Him and McGuire did their thing. His rookie card, he's bunting.
That's right.
So it's like, would Sammy Sosa be a Hall of Fame worthy power hitter if he didn't take steroids? I mean, when you know, these guys, they put, you know, because there's other guys from that set, right, that have their rookie card. Let me see where I could find one. But, you know, where they, you know, where it was obvious that they were power hitters, right? I could find it in here. Oh, there it is. Here, right? At least Frank Thomas is swinging the bat, right? So, I mean, I don't know. That's my take. Some of the, I agree. I mean, if you look through it, there's a lot of guys that, you know, if you're even considering it, to me, it's like, okay, could they have made the Hall of Fame without steroids? And then it's a slightly different discussion. But again, some of the guys that are locked in, some of their records, it's not even to me the Hall of Fame. Like some of their records, that piss me off. Like if somebody asks me who's the all-time home run leader, I'll say Hank Aaron. Barry Bonds has 7 more home runs after, you know, taking steroids for 7 years and is, you know, past his prime to do it. If he didn't take steroids, he would have been maybe a 600 home run hitter. You know, so to me, it's these guys, when you look at these stats and you're like, wow, that's mind-boggling when people are like, oh, it's mind-boggling that he had a 609 on base percentage. No, it's not. Did you ever go to a game when he was on steroids? He looked like this monster that when he comes up to the plate and people are like, all right, I'm just going to walk him. Cool. Like, to me, it's
he didn't even play.
Right,
he didn't play. He would just walk first.
Exactly. He'd just walk up, like smile. They'd walk. He'd go to first base, and then he'd go sit in the dugout for the rest of the game. Right. But it's to me, it's like all those records. So it's not just, hey, he has the most home runs in the season and in a career. Cool. But then, you know, the walk record, the on base percentage record, the slugging percentage record, all these other things that you typically, especially on base percentage, you don't really think of that as like, oh, steroids help that, but it did because pitchers are so scared of him. They walked him. Like Greg Maddux, love Greg Maddux. And when they interviewed Greg Maddux, they asked him, who's the easiest player to pitch to? He said, Bonds. Like, really? Like, yeah. If it's important, just walk him. Right?
So
and I think it
brings up a point here that this is one made it really cloudy to me because I was kind of unsure, but we have guys that we think are roiders already in. I mean, it seems like if you believe the Jose Canseco book that they were passing around steroids like it was candy on the Rangers. So, you know, Rodriguez, maybe he still gets in at being such a superior defensive catcher with slightly less inflated offensive stats, you know, if he was clean, but, you know, it seems like he's already in. Then you showed Ortiz there, but right there, Selig, the guy who knew it was all happening, helped all the owners make a huge profit from the guys doing it, and they put that guy in the Hall of Fame, and it feels almost like the floodgates are open now to me. So
now, real quick, I do want to say I don't condone what they did, but we were all alive during that time, and none of us were really thinking about it until after after this guy's book came out and started dropping names left and right, right? Of course you have to show him because he's the one that really got it rolling, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all loved it. And I was going to show that one too, but I figured somebody else would too. But I had to show that one.
We get the Fleer update.
And I've always wanted one, and I never got to have it when I was that back then. And I got one, and it's a decent one. So anyway,
Nice.
yeah, I don't condone what it was, but it just in some of my research and what I've read is that baseball knew what was going on, but they were making so much money they just let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to the sport in general, right?
Yeah,
there was it was losing popularity after the strike, and then Sosa and McGuire's home run that brought people back to the sport. So I think that in the history of baseball, a lot of important stuff happened here, regardless of whether or not they took steroids. To me, like the all-time records for like home runs, for example, I think it's whatever, he cheated, so he doesn't deserve it. But in general, for baseball, in general for the players, I think that it absolutely is warranted in the history of baseball, and I think that all of that should go into the museum, and there should be all kinds of stuff about that history of the game in the museum. It's just in the hall itself where you get the plaques. To me, it's like, okay,
No, and you're
maybe if I took steroids, I could have gotten in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. I'm fat, but maybe I would have been stronger. Who knows?
some of the stuff is represented in the museum already, McGuire and Bonds and all that stuff. So, but it was still a great time, and I think it brought it, like you said, Darren, it brought a lot of people back to baseball. What do you think, Sammy?
Well, I have this book. It's called Summer of '98. I last read this maybe 20 years ago. I don't know the ins and outs of this book. It does follow the home run race, McGuire Sosa, and the '98 Yankees. This was published in 1999, and I don't think there is one word of steroids in this book whatsoever. Just goes to show you, at that time of when McGuire and Sosa were going through this home run race, you didn't even have to watch baseball to know what was going on. You didn't even have to watch sports.
Mm.
It was talked all in school. It was talked all at the water cooler at work. If you were a baseball fan or sports fan or not, it just captivated the country. In my opinion, I don't think they should let everyone in. Like, I don't think Sammy Sosa should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he benefited from steroids probably more than any other player. I mean, he was hitting 35 home runs maybe in the season, but after that, what did he hit? 252 over a 5-year span? I mean, that is insane. So I'm not saying everyone should be in, but I know there's a gray area. Obviously, there's going to be one, but I think he's one I would not put in, just in my personal opinion. And I loved watching him.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
I just think
if you're going to go in and you took steroids, you had to minimum have had a career worthy of being in the Hall of Fame before you took the steroids, right? Like, if it's like, hey, I was a mediocre player, I took steroids, I could suddenly go from benching like 225 to 500, and I start basically, I either strike out, I lead the league in strikeouts and home runs every season. You're not, why would you're not a Hall of Fame caliber player, regardless of how many home runs you hit.
No, I agree 100%. I think that's a very fair way of looking at it. And John, I'm pretty sure I can't read because I'm on my phone. I can't read what the chat's saying, but I'm pretty sure it's blowing up.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there's a few comments. There's a lot of people saying, well, they've cheated forever. There's a few people saying they don't belong. It's
Yeah, but
divided.
to me though,
Oh.
cheating by taking drugs to me is different than taking PEDs, and that's just my opinion. You know, a couple people in the comments talk about greenies. Cool, you take a greenie, you're more awake. Cool, you take drugs to stay awake. You take drugs to, but no drugs that any Major League Baseball player took prior to PEDs took you from like, hey, I'm getting old and I'm tired and I need to be able to keep going, and it's hard to, boom, start taking the shots, and now it's like, yeah, cool, I'll play. I could play every game. I'll never get tired. I'll never get injured. If I get injured, I just take an extra shot and I feel fine the next day. And then by the way, I also gained 30 pounds of muscle. Right. And there's no argument. Barry Bonds had an amazing eye, right? Like, steroids didn't make him a better hitter. It just made it so that he hit the ball further, and then pitchers were scared of him, so they walked him a lot more. Right. But even before steroids, he led the league in walks a bunch of times. So to me, Bonds had a Hall of Fame worthy career prior to taking steroids. And then he took them and he broke all these records, and that, good for him. But to me, it's like, is he a Hall of Fame worthy player? Yes. Should he be in the Hall of Fame? Him and Clemens are the only ones where it's like, but a lot of those other guys, they even A-Rod. I think A-Rod was a fantastic player, but you don't know how good he was because you really don't know when he started taking roids. I mean, you could kind of guess, but you don't really know. Like, did he start taking roids when he played for the Mariners? Did he not start taking roids till he played for the Rangers? Like, you don't really know. So for him, it's like, if he never took roids, you really don't know. He would have had a pretty good batting average, he'd been a good fielder, but you don't know how he would have been from a power perspective. So even for me, even he is questionable. But these two are the only ones that I would consider. But I think it's, from my perspective, it's if you're not going to have shoeless Joe Jackson in the Hall of Fame or Pete Rose, then these guys definitely don't deserve to be there if that's the standard.
Well, A-Rod's a hot button for me. I mean, 696 home runs. So you take 20% away because you don't know if he did steroids or not, or when he started.
Right. Yeah, you don't know when he started.
But my argument,
01 to 03, but that's
my argument
when he was in Texas, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, they can help you hit the ball further. They can't help you hit a ball coming at 90 to 100 miles an hour and it's not coming in a straight line. I
agree.
Yeah.
Their ability to hit the ball. And that's the thing. Any of the guys that had good batting averages that hit a lot of home runs, it's different. It's the guys that were like, they either struck out or hit a home run. Their batting average was, considerably below like 280 consistently. And every once in a while, they might like poke up into 290, maybe 300, and then drop back down. To me, it's like those guys, they're maybe average to above average players that just happen to be very, very strong. Right. But then you have other guys like Bonds, who was always a good hitter regardless, always a pretty powerful hitter regardless.
It's almost like McGuire just like did the stuff almost
I think
on the field. So
yeah.
Well, people forget too, McGuire hit 49 home runs.
And I think Bonds,
little kid.
Yeah.
Did I hit?
But
yeah.
Whereas,
and I think Barry Bonds did it more out of.
Go ahead, Sammy. Yep.
I was saying that I think Barry Bonds did it more out of jealousy than anything else.
Oh yeah.
He knew he was the best player in baseball. And then he saw Sosa and McGuire go on the show of hitting all these home runs. Luis Gonzalez might be another one. And he said, you know what? I'll show you what this stuff really can do.
Coach.
To an elite player, the best player in the game. Well, watch what I do. And the next year, he ballooned from like 200, maybe 10 pounds to like 230. And we all saw him when he came into spring training. He, his head was like a pumpkin, basically. And he set the home run record that year.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
I guess,
he definitely didn't need to do it, but
a question I want to throw out for everybody.
All right.
Chat, how do you feel? For those of you that say let them in, do you let them in when they're still alive, or do you wait till they die? Do you give them that honor of being on the stage? It feels like they're waiting for Pete Rose to die before they'd even consider him.
Well, I think what's going to happen for Rose, just it's going to be that nice, but it's hard to say with the writers and how the voting goes, and
I agree. It's really tough to know because sometimes they're voting guys in now, and you're like, cool. Like if I had his rookie card, I wouldn't even care. Like it wasn't even that great of a player, and he's getting in the Hall of Fame. So for me, it is tough. That's the one thing that's tough for me is you look at these guys and they're like, yeah, these guys were elite. They cheated, so they were more elite than they naturally would have been. But they're still a hell of a lot better than some of these guys getting in, getting in, on their merits.
Oh yeah, it's between Bonds and Griffey of who the best overall player was when he started.
Yeah,
juicing.
Like imagine if Griffey started taking steroids when he got traded to the Reds, and when he got injured, they were he recovered much faster, and he was much stronger. He could have had 900 home runs, like who knows, right? But he kept it real. He's like, look, right, I played really well. I'm getting older, so it's natural to not play as well as I'm getting older because that's what happens. But he'll always be loved, right? Where the steroid guys, even after they're dead, they'll still be hated, right? Because it's just the way it is, right? So I don't know, it's like a trade-off, right? It's do I want the money, or do I want to go down in history? Is it my legacy or the money? And the steroid guys to me chose money, and the guys that chose not to take steroids during that period chose their legacy. And you got to respect that. At least I do.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean I don't love those players.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't. Yeah, I have nothing against the players.
Oh,
I just don't think that they should be in the Hall of Fame.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And see, that's what makes having a really good, fun conversation like this.
100% agree. But then there's also a bunch of players from that era that we talked about Griffey, right? We talked about Griffey. Mm-hmm. He could have definitely, if he took steroids, he would have had a better career. But he still ended up with an awesome career and goes down in history as not taking steroids during that era, right? Here's another player that if he took steroids, he probably would have imagine he got a lot of hits, but he didn't hit for power. But imagine if he suddenly became a power hitter, right? He didn't do it. And and that's the thing. To me, the guys from that era that didn't take steroids and still had successful careers, those are the guys that some of the guys I for sure admire most in baseball, because they had the option, they chose not to, and they did it. They did it the right way, and they still were incredibly successful at what they did, even though some of these other guys were taking the PDs. They chose not to, and they still did well.
Right. All right.
I mean, at that point, if you let in any, can you even differentiate based off of what you think, or you just have to go with the ultimate stats? Because
you got to go with
what even as like a Palmeiro, would he have come close to his stats without?
If you look at Palmeiro's stats in a vacuum, you're like, oh wow, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, yeah, absolutely, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But you're like, well, if he didn't take steroids, would he have had 500 home runs? Right? He had what, like 536 or something like that. Like I can't remember, but it's like if he didn't take steroids, because you look at those numbers, right, and it's not just because they did some scientists did some they looked into this, right, and they said for Bond, for example, he hit the ball, I think they said 14 feet further or something like that when he was on steroids. So even if you said, okay, every home run he hit, subtract 14 feet in that stadium, would have still been a home run. You said you get rid of all those home runs. But to me, that's not taking it far enough, right? Because you're just assessing just like the top level. The other thing you have to take into consideration is, yeah, as he gets older, he wouldn't have been hitting it as hard when he was that old, regardless. So like, it's not just take 14 feet off; it's take 14 feet off, and then take into consideration that he was past his prime. So then to take those home runs off, because as soon as he started taking steroids, he suddenly went back into like the ultimate prime in his late 30s, right? So you got to take that into consideration. So for these guys, and they only did that assessment on Bonds, I think. So if you take that to like, Palmeiro, yeah, he wouldn't, personally, I think he would not have hit 500 home runs. So yeah, he has a good eye at 3,000 hits. So that's good. Does that warrant getting in the Hall of Fame on 3,000 hits? Maybe. But
does he even have that because he doesn't hit the ball as hard to get through the infield or something?
That's true. That's true. And again, same thing. He gets older, but his body doesn't age, so he's able to keep hitting more consistently, even though he should be trailing off, right? So it's tough. I think, to me personally, the only people that I would even think about that are Hall of Fame worthy that took steroids would be Bonds, Clemens, maybe A-Rod, maybe. The rest of them, their career, their career is defined. If your career is defined by taking steroids, you're not a Hall of Famer, because if your playing ability isn't good enough to be remembered, other than the fact that you took steroids, you weren't that good of a player. And I mean, and that's the thing too. You still had dudes hitting tons of home runs. Let's find an example of a good one. Here you go. Yeah, guys hitting tons of home runs that, didn't take steroids. Griffey was one. This guy.
All right, that'll be the lead into our next phase here with
mention Tommy as well.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be called a Cleveland homer. So
no. I love Tommy. I mean, because he looked like he was taking steroids, but he was just
we all got
really big dude.
What you got there, Sammy?
We all got the cards ready, Warren. So we all got the Tomes ready.
Oh, there we go. Beautiful.
Yeah,
there's one.
One of my guys.
Got the Tomes, but then we also have this guy too,
Frank Thomas. Sure.
Right. I mean, again, he had he actually, to me, was even more of his numbers were more steroid-ish, right? Because not saying he did, but he had the batting average and the home runs, right? So, to me, he's awesome. Imagine if he took steroids, he'd look like a freaking bodybuilder. He weighed like 400 pounds of muscle, right? It'd be awesome. But he didn't need to. And
he was a tight end for the football team in college too. So
yeah, for Auburn.
Yeah. But Chris from Missouri is here in the chat, and I think him and Greg both undervalued him when we did our rookie card rankings in as far as career performance, and I think part of that is getting overshadowed with roiders.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I agree.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, even both of these guys too. Right? You got Ichiro.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Pujols was a beast. Imagine if he started taking steroids when he got traded to the Angels. That would have been insane. Ichiro, if he took steroids, he'd have like 8,000 hits because he wouldn't have to retire. He'd play another 10 seasons at peak performance.
Well, the start to Pujols' career, it's like Frank Thomas 2.0, like the upgrade model.
Yeah.
Basically.
I agree.
Yeah, you look at one of his baseball cards, right? Flip over his Topps card from later in his career, and those first 5-6 seasons, it's like led the league in runs, hits, RBIs, doubles, home runs, batting average. Like, holy crap! Like, he's like the reincarnation of Lou Gehrig.
Oh, we got
it's like a Lou Gehrig. It's like the Lou Gehrig start of the career.
Pujols is dirty. Greg is stirring the chat.
Greg's going off.
Well,
you need to take a shower.
It's an easy topic to get people stirred up on, and before we move on, is one other guy too that I have to mention because, my opinion, is still one of the sweetest swings I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen him play multiple times in person. Is Manny Ramirez.
Yeah.
There's another one. There's a
Well, is he
92
on the clean or the dirty list? I thought he had a cloud of suspicion with him. I don't know.
I thought he was on the dirty list.
He was on the dirty list.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
He got suspended twice for PEDs.
I kind of lump him.
Well, there you go.
I kind of lump him together with A-Rod. Not the same player, but as far as allegation-wise,
Yeah.
I think they've both been caught multiple times.
Yeah.
So,
And
Yeah,
they
they
both
got
had similar
suspensions here,
hitting, right? They both had seasons where they had led the league in batting average, led the league in RBIs, obviously in home runs,
right.
Right. So I agree, very similar outcome of taking steroids.
There you go. Ryan Fitzgerald says he's already in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
A different one of idiots. So
He was a interesting individual.
Neither one of them were too bright. Let's be honest.
And Rick just made a comment, and I agree with that point. Every guy that he mentioned every person there, that's a problem when they keep setting the bar lower and lower for what it takes to get in, because there's fewer and fewer guys. To me, it's like, okay, there's fewer and fewer guys that are eligible, that really deserve to be in, that earned it. Then there's less people getting in. I mean, who cares? Well, who cares if there's like one or two guys getting in? Some years, no guys. To me, that's better than saying, hey, there's nothing really going on. We don't have an option. Who should we put in? Harold Baines is like 43rd in all-time RBIs. So sure, he's in. So for me, it's I agree with Rick. Like, if there's guys getting in that don't deserve to be in, they weren't good enough ball players. It kind of tarnishes it. So, like, that would be my only argument against it, or putting some of these guys in, is they were better than a lot of guys in there, even if they didn't take steroids.
all right. I agree with Andrew Deutsch there. Fred McGriff, only 493 home runs. What's the deal? Because, all right, quick trivia for the chat. Before the start of the steroid era, there were only 2 players with over 400 home runs that didn't make the Hall of Fame. Anybody know who those 2 players are? But apparently Sammy knows. But
I want to say Dave Kingman was one, but no, that's not correct.
it is correct, and that's what Mookie threw out there. Unfortunately, Dale Murphy ended with 398.
Yeah, he was short.
398.
So,
well, at least I'm trying to remember the other one. I can't.
Then the other one played with the Tigers when they won the World Series in '84. He spent some time with the Braves. What other clues could I give?
Came up with the Giants, I believe.
I think maybe. Oh, we got somebody. We had Eddie hitting that one. There we go.
Daryl. Okay.
Yep, Daryl Evans.
Forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had like 414, somewhere around there. But
414.
So 400 used to be a huge number that was almost a Hall of Fame entry.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things that got jacked with the.
All righty.
But yeah, go. Sammy, you got some other player you want to cite who got screwed as far as legacy thanks to roiders?
Now, this one can be very polarizing, to be honest, because there are, I guess he's in the Pudge Rodriguez category, but it's never proven that he did steroids.
Okay.
Jeff Bagwell.
That is a polarizing one.
No love.
Yeah.
And if you look at his stats, they are incredible. He had one of the greatest seasons that people don't really remember, and that's 1994, the strike year.
Mm-hmm.
He had OPS of 1,200, which is 35 all time for a single season. Hit 368, led the league in runs, RBIs, total bases. The guy was a monster. Now, did he take steroids? I don't know. He's never been proven to take them. So I always liked watching him play. He's a kind of a shiny card right here. But yeah, people never bring him up. And he's maybe because he plays the position of first base, which is kind of heavy into the power hitting. But he's someone I always like watching play.
But at least the nice
he
thing
didn't do the greatest in the postseason, but
yeah.
Go ahead, Warren.
Oh no, I said nice thing is Bagwell's in the Hall of Fame, so at least.
Yeah, there's Dom's comment.
Yes, yeah, he is in the Hall of Fame.
Legend, if we would have spent his career in Boston doing what he did,
Was traded for Larry.
we'd hear about him all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean him too, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I was just going to grab Biggio
Yeah.
cards, but you don't have to. Darren, I got it right here.
Yeah, I was gonna say Biggio's the same way, right? It's been alleged that he took steroids for like 1 or 2 seasons, and then stopped.
Chilson finished
Right.
Sammy's statement there.
Yeah,
Larry Anderson was who he was traded for.
Larry Anderson, yeah.
Yeah, that great Hall of Fame relief pitcher.
You know, another guy gets forgotten about is Barry Larkin, and I didn't.
The great mustache.
But you know, we talk a lot about power hitters, but I'm gonna throw a guy out here who I personally believe belongs in the Hall of Fame, and he may get there someday, but he got on a ballot and then didn't get enough and dropped off, and everybody forgets about him. But if you look at his overall numbers for his career, it's this guy right here, Kenny Lofton. 15th all-time in steals, 6-time All-Star, 4 Gold Gloves. Now, yes, I understand WAR can be an overrated stat, but 68.9 WAR. The average Hall of Famer is at 60 WAR, with the upper tiers being over 100. So anywhere between, usually they say between 60 and 100 WAR is Hall of Fame worthy. That could be skewed too. You know what I mean? But he had 2,428 hits, lifetime batting average at 299, 1,500 runs scored, and 781 RBIs as a leadoff hitter. And he stole 622 bases, which is 15th all time. And he definitely.
I would say as soon as Ricky Henderson was declining, he was the best leadoff guy in the majors.
I would agree.
And a good defensive center fielder.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys know I like my Dufex card. So there's a nice Z team, Pinnacle C team. And just for fun, I got the 96 Leaf signature press proof. I just like the look of that card. It's just pretty. Just to follow through, you know, he probably hit a double in the gap because he was good for that. Fun stuff. But he was one guy for me, and
yeah, he was a solid player. Do we want to upset my good friend Greg right now and start talking about pitchers?
Yeah,
yep.
Do it.
We do.
So, do you want to talk about the greatest pitcher since post Tom Seaver, maybe?
We do. Let's do it.
I mean, he's
wasn't that guy in the Royd list?
He had a Hall of Fame career before he started taking steroids.
He had 3 Cy Youngs by 1992.
Yeah, he would have still if he didn't take steroids, I think he still would have been in the 300 win, 3,000 strikeout club easily.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and he definitely was a Hall of Fame career, but took the steroids. And that's the
I
thing.
think without the roids, though, his career stats look a lot closer to a guy getting screwed from the Hall of Fame now as Kurt Schilling. I mean, he might have a few more wins, but their overall stats would be a hell of a lot closer.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. The thing that's tough for me, too, is if you do a comparison, you say, okay, what if these guys took steroids? Right? Like Maddox could have had, if Maddox, stayed strong, he could have had 400 wins, right? Randy Johnson bulked up a little bit, right? Instead of being like 6'10", 225, he could have been 6'10", 285. He could have pitched a few more seasons, and then he could have been pushing my man Nolan Ryan on the all-time strikeout record. But those guys didn't take steroids, and they still had two of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, it's hard for me to, I think Mike Mussina is another one that kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Of that time. Before we jump on here, I mentioned, well, I think Kevin Brown was in the upper echelon during that time frame, but he's tied to PEDs too, or roids. Like you said, they were passing around the Texas locker room like candy, I guess.
Right.
Even
names all night long, but we'll be here all night long too.
Yeah, I mean, even Glavine too. Like if Glavine took roids, he would have gone from being like really, really, really good to great.
There we go. Clemens, 7 Cy Young Awards, 1 roid rage bat throwing incident, both records.
Yeah,
leave it to Mookie.
which is kind of funny if you think about it. The most Cy Youngs of all time, 7. Clemens, the most MVPs of all time, Bonds, 7. It's again,
neither one of them
tough.
are in.
It's insane, right?
And there you go. Clemens checks the
also
same box.
Struck out 20 guys twice.
Yeah.
But Clemens checks the same boxes that Sheffield does. He was on roids and a jerk. So.
Well, so hey, you got to remember, it's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it doesn't help the voting.
That's true.
I mean, you got Schilling basically out just because he's a dick, and you get other guys not getting votes because the writers don't like him. So,
yeah, and that's to me from a Hall.
How about this guy?
Go ahead.
Is that Jeff Kent?
No, Omar Vizquel. He's not exactly off the field a gentleman himself, but he's got
traded Tiffany.
2,800 career hits, and probably one of the best defensive players, let alone shortstops, that I ever saw.
11 Gold Glove.
After Ozzie Smith, he was doing things I never saw being done from a shortstop. So, but he's not exactly a model for being a gentleman.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. Like, I think the Hall of Fame in general, the topic steroids, but the Hall of Fame, I think, has shifted a lot, right? Because, you have guys in the Hall of Fame, Ty Cobb, he was an asshole. I mean, there's no proof that he wasn't, I guess. But Cap Anson, right? I mean, these guys are in the Hall of Fame. Like today, if those guys didn't said the stuff they did then, now they probably wouldn't get in the Hall of Fame. No matter how, I mean, Cap Anson he was a good player. I mean, Ty Cobb was incredible, but he was a jerk. Said stuff that we would deem inappropriate now, and it was inappropriate then. But there was a lot more leeway with it.
Roger Hornsby wasn't a very nice guy either.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
Ted Williams was pretty salty himself. Well, how are you going to keep him out, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least they put him in on the first ballot, even though they screwed him out of a few of his MVP awards. But
that moved my chair.
What do you mean? He only hit 406. He didn't have a 56-game hitting streak that year.
Yeah. But
That is true.
so well, like what do we Jeff Kent, he's supposed to be clean, isn't he? At least for roids.
Yeah. I was gonna. The only Jeff Kent, believe it or not, I have is in my '92 Fleer update set, and I didn't want to open it. It's sealed, or else I would have showed the card. I could show the set. I just gotta grab it up here.
I mean, all-time second baseman, home run hitter.
377 home runs, 2,461 hits, lifetime batting average of 290, 3-time Gold Glover, 9-time Silver Slugger, 5-time All-Star, and won an MVP. So, I don't know. For a second baseman who eventually played first, I think, at some point.
That was real close to the end, though. I mean,
Yeah, right.
He's got the vast majority of his games at second. So
Hit behind Barry Bonds.
Not get anything. I mean,
So Jeff Kent's in there. Sorry, guys.
no worries.
I didn't want to open it. I was like, anyway.
And then, I mean, he had a hell of a career, Carlos Delgado. I know he's up in Toronto, so he gets a lot less press. But
yeah,
what, 470 something homers, 1,500 plus RBIs.
Yep. 280 lifetime batting average. His WAR is really low though, but it's 44.4, which is kind of. But to me, WAR isn't everything. Sometimes it's just the eye test. To me, for any player, really.
I'm not a big fan of WAR myself.
I don't like WAR.
It's just a nice picture.
Any career stat that ranks Nolan Ryan that low it's not a good stat.
Agreed.
Sure. But
Delgado has some.
When you ask someone how to calculate WAR and they have no idea, then I just throw it out the window.
Right. It's like if you have to have a PhD in mathematics to be able to calculate a stat, and only 2 different groups can actually calculate it. It might be going a little too far, right? Like whatever happened to like hits divided by at bats? That's simpler. I could figure that out if I had a calculator.
Oh, we got some support for Delgado here in the chat, and shorter career, but I would say of that era, the only person that compares in being feared to Barry Bonds, Albert Bell.
Oh, I knew you were going to say him.
Why does Joey Bell there not get more love? I mean, his peak was a 10-year period there, but it was a monster. So, I mean, of course, he doesn't come up with the stats that Jake Legends Never Die cares about. But, man, it's like Koufax-esque hitter here, run. Ralph Kiner, he got in.
Yeah, but he led the league in home runs, 8 years in a row, starting his rookie season. That's a cool stat.
It is a cool stat, but
50 home runs and 50 doubles in a season. I can honestly tell you during that time, especially like 95, when he'd come to the plate in that stadium, it would go bong, bong. Every person in that stadium, because that was during that streak where they sold out 450 something straight games. Place would go nuts, and nobody was sitting down. No one. He's one of my guys, but like I told John, I was going to pull Bell, but I didn't want to mention him because I don't want to be called a Cleveland homer. Just put Cleveland guys, but he's not wrong.
I had him ready.
He's a good one.
No, he drove in 100 runs every year, except his first full season, and he drove in 95 that year.
Is that all?
All the way up until he retired. Every year he drove in 100 runs.
Good call.
Yeah. So what is the reason? The same reason here. Mike Petty says Joey Bell, Rich Allen, and Kurt Flood are not in for the same reason. I wonder what he's saying there.
People don't like him.
Okay. Because Kurt Flood rocked the boat. I'm a little too. Well, all of us are probably a little too young for Rich Allen to know that much. Was he not liked as well?
I feel like I'm the same age as Patty.
Don't think so.
Oh man, I tell you what, man, this could go on. The nice thing is that, it's always a great conversation when nobody loses their head, man. You know what I mean? That's not what it's all about. We all love these players. We all love the cards. But the argument is the Hall of Fame because, and I agree with everybody here. I don't want to see it watered down with anybody, but when certain players come along, they just belong.
Oh yeah,
because they're so far above and beyond the next guy below them or other guys around them that they could carry a team, a story, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And just that, I don't agree with what they did. And believe me, it killed me. It really killed me. And I mean, I'll say it. I got teary-eyed because I'm like, why, man?
Yeah.
Why? Especially Palmero waving his finger.
Yeah.
That one upset me more because I was like in love with Palmero as a player, and I'm just like, I was crushed. And I think about it now, and I still get crushed. But then I think about all the great memories I had watching those games, and feeling the energy that you got when those home runs were being hit and those pitches were being thrown and 20 strikeouts and all this stuff. That'll never go away from here or here. So people, it's okay to disagree with each other, but that's not going to change my opinion of what I felt watching these players play, period.
No, I mean, I went to a Rockies game and they were playing the Giants and Bonds had one at bat and he hit a home run. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, that's pretty sweet to see. And yeah, I mean, but like you said, I agree. No arguing. I took a Xanax before this, so I'm fine.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that hurts to me is that it tainted the most sacred records in American sports. I mean, there's nothing that is more iconic for American sports than the home run. I mean, it's why Babe Ruth became what he became in terms of icon. Is that he completely made baseball popular for everybody, not just people that played baseball. And
yeah, and
everyone wanted to see him hit home runs.
Yeah, and that's why I love Hank Aaron, because he was just so consistent. Did he ever hit over 50 home runs in a season? I don't think he did. And I don't think he hit between like 35 and 48 a season, like every season for 25 years. Right. So like, he day in, day out, hustle for it. Right. It wasn't like, hey, I'm making pretty good progress, and then in like the next 5 years, I'm going to add 300 more home runs or 200 and whatever number of home runs and break the all-time record. And the other thing that kind of irks me about that is Bonds just kept playing. He broke the record by 7 and was done. Right. It's not like it'd have been like if Hank Aaron retired at the end of the season when he broke the record. He just kept playing because he was good, and he felt good. He wasn't, felt like he could do it for a few more seasons, right? So it's, and that's my other thing with Bonds. It's like with the steroids, and then he also kind of like I view kind of Pete Rose a little bit that way, where it's like he had to beat Ty Cobb's hit record, so just kept playing, and you pass your prime, but I get a few more hits this year. I get a little closer. And I kind of feel like Bonds, even with steroids, that's what he did to get that record, because it, he had 5 years of steroids and then a couple of years where, he technically, I don't think, did at the very, very end. He just broke the record by a couple and was done.
Well, checking the chat again, it looks like the most obsessive topic over the last few minutes has been hair, ever since somebody commented about complimenting Mike Petty's hair.
Yeah, ever since Greg said that Mike has nicer hair than me. Yes.
Yeah. And then
that's fair. He
Greg,
does.
all he can afford is Suave, since he's just a teacher. So,
Greg, I'm going to send you some Aveda. It's my care package to you.
All right.
I am.
Good stuff.
The comment here from Sexton, stats mean more in baseball than any other sport.
Yep.
And I think that is especially true now.
That is true.
Considering the rule changes of the other two sports so much skewing it towards offense. I mean, they've ruined their own record books by making it so much easier to throw the football or to score a basket because the defender can barely touch you. So, I'm not a hockey guy since I grew up on the West Coast, so I don't even know about that one. But that's mostly
it seems
Canadian or Northeast. So, go ahead.
Seems like every year that the Hall of Fame comes around, it's just dissecting numbers.
Yeah.
To make it feel like this guy is worthy of being in, instead of being like, oh yeah, he's, I don't know, like a Mike Schmidt. He's an obvious Hall of Famer. But now every year we got to dissect numbers. We got to look at numbers that we don't even know what they mean. Basically, like we talked about earlier about having a formula to figure something out. It's just gotten crazy.
Right. I'm gonna go work for Baseball Reference, and then I'll just give people wars and be like, that's what we calculated. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you have all these advanced
and I never watched the game.
Yeah, I calculate Bobby Witt has a 300 career WAR already. He should be in the Hall of Fame. That's what I calculated, because nobody can prove me wrong, because nobody knows how the hell I did it.
And it's funny because I watch a lot of baseball. I watch a ton of baseball. Broadcast, TV, radio. No one mentions WAR whatsoever until someone's career's over or the season's over. That's the only time people bring it up.
Right. Imagine if they had the Einstein in the booth with him. It's like, well, after that hit, his season WAR just went from 3.13 to 3.135, and you're like, cool, well, that's awesome. I'm gonna go get drunk now. That's the greatest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah.
And vintage on vintage here saying the stats in baseball are sacred, but there was the dead ball era. The game was not integrated until the 50s. So as sacred as they are all skewed. So
yeah,
I mean, that's where I have a hard time in all-time lists. I have a hard time in all-time lists of ranking anybody pre-integration above, post-integration. I mean, it kind of feels like there were more available talent than any other time in like the 60s. Because you had every team integrated. You didn't have quotas of how many could be on a team that were, invisible quotas. That you didn't, and then you also had the Latino player invasion in full swing at that point. And you still only had they expanded to 24 teams, so you still only had a small number of teams. You didn't have basketball or football stealing away the best athletes yet. It's hard to compete with I think the 1960s as far as when the talent was there, but that's totally off track of this topic. But
jump down that rabbit hole too. Just good times, man.
But I think we're about wrapped up here with this topic there, unless anybody has any last thoughts you want to share. Sammy, anything?
I think pretty much the last thing I said was what I wanted to spew out to end the show, I guess.
Okay, Darren.
No, I would say that this is a very polarizing topic, and it sucks that there are guys that absolutely, I think both ways, it sucks to the guys that absolutely deserve to be in there that probably never will be, and it's too bad. And at the same time, off topic, a lot of the guys in there that don't deserve to be there. So it just kind of is what it is. To see how things play out. But I do think some of these guys will get in posthumously. I do. I think Bonds will. I think Clemens will, for sure. Those two posthumously, and that's the thing, right? It's like these guys. This whole concept of like lifetime, and it's all. And the other thing that kind of bugs me too is it's lifetime. These like Piros, right? Lifetime ban from baseball. The Hall of Fame is not control. It's not owned, or it's an entity of Major League Baseball. It's separate. So just because baseball banned them, they can't engage in baseball. Doesn't mean they can't be in the Hall of Fame. But I think that a lot of these guys will get in when they die, which might re-cement their legacy because enough time has passed.
Yeah, Greg had to say my biggest takeaway of the night. We all agree that Clemens was clean. So, and Jason also threw in that Harold Baines deserves to be in the Hall. So,
yeah, I mean that just goes right with what Darren was saying. So, and there's no better way to finish than that. Just it's such a polarizing topic, and there's always going to be those arguments and things like that. But it's just about, hey, always have to remember one thing. It's baseball. It's a game that we all love, and that's why we're all here, and we're all here doing this together. So, and to me, that's what it's all about. But being able to have,
I agree.
I think in today's society, and it's fun. I had a blast with you guys. Really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, guys. This was a good time.
Yeah, it was fun. Lots of fun.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in the chat and chiming in. Loved all the comments.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you very
Chad.
much.
You guys are great. Awesome comments tonight.
Warren, Darren, and
Thanks,
Sammy.
chat.
So, everybody, thanks for watching, and we will see you all next time.
All right. Be good to everybody out there. Be good.